Hi.
Hi.
How
I mean,
are
are you
you?
saying hi to me?
Yes, we're saying hi to you.
On
Welcome.
the track. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm Jocelyn. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we were just like hanging out and talking about how like we were so silly when we were little, going to Lake Michigan, and we'd wash our hair with like Pantene and Swab, and how terrible that was for the environment.
Gosh, I'm from Michigan, you know.
Yes, I do know that, which is so cool. You can
It
always
is
tell.
so cool. I can tell from your accent.
Could you? Too funny. I
I
know.
love
It's so funny. I moved to Florida we're going on our fifth year this summer. So it's like our fourth summer. And when I meet someone from Michigan, I know they're from Michigan or the Midwest really in general. Cause I'm like, wait, you're from Michigan, aren't you? Or you're from Midwest. Yeah, yeah. All
So
right.
I
So
have to tell you, I live in Atlanta now. And I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but it took 8 years before, you stop bracing for the cold when you open the door in the winter. And B, when you can just finally like stop sweating profusely. But I mean, I think it took eight solid summers.
oh my
Wow.
God. I have to
It's
tell you
fun.
though that it took a long time. The first summer, I remember moving down here in June and I'm like, it's freaking hot. And then by August, I'm like, it's hotter.
Yeah.
Like, and then September and October, it was even hotter. So
It is
the
so hot. It is.
yeah.
I'm in Atlanta, and it is misery right now. Today it's 99. My boy's like, I'm gonna go play tennis. I'm like, what is wrong with you? There's no way I would do that, but
At least he's outside though. My kids
I
are
know. I
stuck
was like, here's
inside.
your racket. See ya. Bye.
Right. My kids are like stuck inside. They don't want to go outside. We were just talking about that with like staycation with kids, like during the summertime, especially when they're younger, they'll do the stuff that you plan. But like when they get older, they're like, no, pass, skip.
Right.
And so I don't do any of that anymore. Okay. So
Mhm.
this is fun. So you're from Atlanta, you have a couple kids,
I
and yeah, and I want to know more
I
about,
did it. I have
yeah,
to
right.
celebrate every day. They're still alive. I'm amazing. I'm
I hear
amazing.
you.
Right. I know. It's like, what age do they get to where you're like, yes, I'm thinking
Well,
like
I mean, they
16.
can barely make a sandwich. I don't have the, maybe it's because I spend a lot of time meditating, but I don't have the time delusion thing. So I'm like, when are you leaving? Like it's like they can't, like, shouldn't you pull the car around or fucking something? Like they can't do anything. You know what I mean? So I'm like, why don't you run to the girl? Oh, that's right, you're only 11. How long are you gonna be here? So I don't have there are babies and I my baby's growing up so fast. I don't have that. I'm like, gosh, I can't believe how long you guys have been.
Right. Thank God I'm not the only one that's like, wait a second, TikTok, how come we're not? But right. But it gets scary
Yeah.
though, too, because when they're so little and everyone's like, oh, enjoy the baby days. And you're like, okay,
That's
sure.
like telling someone to enjoy, somebody puking on your. I mean, like, come on,
Yeah.
enjoy every minute. Yeah, you can suck it. Have you ever seen a baby? One time, my daughter threw up in my mouth was open.
Oh,
Like, I'm gonna enjoy that minute. I'm still talking about it. You know what I mean? It was 10 years ago. We need to be a little kinder to moms in that regard. That's a lot like, sleep while you can. I'm like, well, I would eat all my meals in January for the whole year just for convenience purposes if I could do that. But come on.
right.
It's
Mhm.
still asking a lot of moms still, I think.
Totally. Especially when you're like, sleep when I can, like they're up all day and they're up all night. Like
Yeah, maybe when they go to sleep, I want to have a moment to myself.
yeah, I want to watch some TV,
Maybe I don't want to be sleeping.
Exactly. Maybe I want to be meditating. Let's talk
Right. I
about
will tell
that.
you, one of the benefits of meditation that has been clinically proven is that you have a decreased need for sleep.
Really?
I know that's a hot
Ooh.
ticket, isn't it? It's
That
hot.
is a hot ticket. Okay, so how did you get into meditation? Because
I know I
you're
don't
like,
seem likely, do I?
no, you
Like
do
the
not.
likely.
No.
I just did a retreat over the weekend and I was like, let's it. I mean, I was like, sit up straight. I mean, no, I'm not that mean on retreats, but I am a little more loud was one of my feedback words, which I thought was good. But that's sort of my thing. I mean, I want meditation to be accessible to everybody because it's a little weird. It's a little out there. And I think that if you're intimidating people or if it's filled with dogma you don't understand or a culture that you've never visited, it can be a little weird and off-putting. And so I try to make it accessible to everyone. I was at a podcasting festival or conference. I missed all the seminars because I was just hanging out with really super cool people. But they had this room and they had somebody in there doing, meditation services and Reiki services. And it was a little intimidating. And I kept asking people, have you been in there? And they were like, no, and I want people to come. So I'm a little more, I'm a little different than maybe your average meditation teacher.
Yeah, you seem like it.
Definitely don't have it all together, but I think maybe that helps for the people I'm attracting. Yeah. I got into it because I got sick. I was touring with a band. I used to be sort of a little pop star. So I toured, I was 27 for 13 years. It was amazing. And I toured around with a band and we recorded and performed all over. And I was just like running that little business. And then I was running my, I'm a therapist. So I was running my private practice and I had all these things going on once and I got really, really sick and I almost didn't make it. And it was all because of stress. And I was like, they're like, you got to change your diet, and I was like, I'm going to die then because this is just how I am. I can't do yoga. I can't sit still. What? Right. I can barely do that now. You should have seen me before. Like I had a lot of energy and I had a lot to say before. I'm just kidding. Like, no. But
I was going to say more, you had more energy.
So much more. Well, I'm also doing I teach people how to create healthy habits. So I'm teaching people, all these things that give you more energy and that make you a little bit happier, make your life a little bit better. So for me, it's really exciting. I love it.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Thanks. So I had to change. And I had to figure it out. And a lot of it was not, comfortable, and once you learn the brain science behind it, I saw it as an ethical obligation to teach it to all of my clients. I'm a social worker by trade. And I'm like, y'all, this is about as good for you as water. Like everybody needs to be doing it. Like, I'm sure social services are going to come, but I'm like, you can't miss the meditation, kids. You could miss a meal or two, but like, you know what I mean? Like another meal would come. You could hack it. Because it's so good for you. And then, my husband got really, really sick with like serious cancer. He had I'm making quote marks. He had the most extensive surgery a human can endure. And he was like this master healer. And it was because he was a meditator. And even though I'd read all these things, for pain management, the best thing is meditation. It works better than morphine. I didn't believe any of that, and here he is asking for meditation rather than morphine. Wow. So you need it before you need it. You know what I mean, Jocelyn? Like you need it. Like I couldn't teach him how to meditate in that state. Right.
Right.
So, it's exciting because you see the effects of it. And I could never predict like how it would help each client. They all come up with their own stories and it's pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing. I love that because I always think that there's, people get into something and there's always a reason, you're right. There's always a journey. There's always like something that happened to sort of like change their trajectory and launch them into something that maybe they thought that they wanted to try, or maybe always wanted to try, or never even knew that it was even possible. So I think that's really cool.
It's not on my radar, but
I love it. Like, I think I read somewhere where it said like, you're Dolly Parton meets like Dalai Lama. And I'm like, that is so funny. And then you said you're a pop star. So I was like, okay, come on.
I wore purple eyeshadow all through COVID. I don't give a shit. Like I'm a little like Dolly that way. I like it.
Yeah. Right. That's so cool that I could totally see you being a singer and being on the stage and,
it was great fun. I wouldn't take any of it back. It was great fun.
Yeah. That's so cool. I have to tell you, meditating is intimidating for me. It's overwhelming. I will tell you.
You're my ideal client.
I'm sure I am, right? Honestly, like I do play meditations for my kids right now. It's like Fortnite meditations by like Honeybee. So it's like more of like a kids thing at night because, my youngest, he's got some stuff going on and somebody like I talked to like a shaman. I've talked to like different people in like the spiritual realm and they're like, maybe you should try meditation. So for kids to get them to sit still it's hard, but at bedtime, instead of reading a book, we do a meditation. So that's been cool. Yeah. And then like for me, in terms of specifically meditating, it's a little intimidating. It's overwhelming. And it's like, oh, this is boring. Like I can't even focus on my kids talking to me. I'm like zoning out, like, and trying to reel myself back in to focus
They're
on
probably not as interesting as, Carolyn.
right. Exactly. Well, and the thing, I mean, and then I can only handle.
No offense. I don't know your kids, but
no, I mean, I can only hear so much about Roblox and, Fortnite and all the other like weird crap that they're watching on YouTube. But I am working with like a spiritual plumber, and I do believe, and it does work, I mean,
what's a spiritual plumber?
I know it's just a modality where, and I also do breath work too. So that's kind of like in the realm, it's just different. And I really feel like meditation would be really beneficial for me too, to add in, because sometimes, walking into those different types of modalities, healing and spiritual and stuff, like you need to be in the right zone. And if you're not in the right zone, I don't know if you're going to necessarily get what you need out of it. Right.
No? Yeah, no, you could create it. People are making it more complicated than it is. This is real simple. I mean, I can tell you 3 ways.
No, I
three
like
little
it.
jobs. Like we make things complicated. Some things are real simple, right? So like Beatles songs.
Yes.
Right. There's only 4 tracks, man. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
it doesn't need to be a math problem solo in order for it to sound good. Right.
Right.
So you have to keep it simple. Remember, meditation is not a focus on no thing or nothing, right? It's just focusing on one thing. Okay. And once you change it that way, you don't have to think about clearing your head or any of that stuff, because who the hell can do that? I don't know anybody who can do that. Like if we can do that, then we're probably dead. Right. Your brain was created to think. That's its job. So if I'm like, okay, ready, Jocelyn, ready, guys, like ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. When I count to 3, don't hear. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not, your brain is created to think. It's good that it thinks. That's its job. It's a lovely, wonderful thing. Right. And so rather than practicing distraction, you know what I mean? We could practice. I just picked up my phone and touched it for those people listening, but rather than practicing distraction, we can practice concentration. And so if you start with the C word, that's a way in, right? And so you would just do 1, 2, 3. Your job is to sit there completely still, just for a couple minutes, not for an hour, not till next Tuesday. You don't have to be a monk about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
A couple minutes, you're not going to move your body. That's 1. 2, you're going to focus on your breath. What does that mean? You're going to just watch it as if it's your breath, as if I'm watching your breath. You're a witness to it. You're away from it and you're just watching what's happening. You're not changing it. You're not doing any of that. That might be here, might be here, might be up here, wherever you decide your breath is. So that's 1, sit still. 2, you watch your breath. And 3, your brain is going to find it incredibly boring to sit there and focus on your breath. It's going to want to go to the future and think about dinner. I don't know what I'm making for dinner tonight. You guys know what you're making?
No, I haven't been cooking at all. We've been doing takeout. We're terrible.
Soup.
I want to go
takeout. Sounds good.
It does sound good. Like
sushi.
So does soup, though, especially if you're going to make it for me. I feel so nurtured. I'm not even having any. Okay,
I'll mail it to you.
I will accept that with loving arms. Okay, so it's 3 is your brain is going to find that incredibly boring after like 5 or 6 seconds, maybe 10 if you're lucky, right? Yeah. Of the breath, watching the breath. And so your job is to bring that attention back around to the breath. And that's the practice. Every time you space out, you come back to the breath. Every time you space out, you come back to the breath. And you don't listen to someone talk you through it. You can, but occasionally you do it on your own. I mean, it's nice to have somebody take you down the mountain, but eventually you get your skis on, get your pants on and go down by yourself. Right. And then you do that. And then when you're done, you're like, wow, I probably thought about laundry most of the time or whatever. And then you move on and then you show up the next day, but you just keep showing up. And what we found is after only like 3 weeks, you have a profound difference in your prefrontal cortex. Your brain looks different. That's really relevant.
Wow.
So that's the other thing I was going to ask is like, you talked about like better sleep. What else is there out there? Because you talk about research and science showing that meditation is, an amazing thing. It's life-changing for you. for healing, if you're illness and, wellness and all that kind of stuff. So like, what are the other pieces? What are like a couple other pieces of scientific research? Because to
There
me,
is
when I think of like
mental
meditation, when I think of meditation, I'm kind of like, when do I do it? Like, and how do
Oh,
I
I
do
have a
it?
lot to say about that. Okay.
Okay.
So I showed you how. 1, 2, 3. That's it. You do that. 3, 5 minutes. That's it. Okay.
Okay.
The way that you make it habitual is the trick, right? Because every other new behavior, we can use in my business, we talk a lot about our ego because, and when I was on stage and I had my own little monitor, I'd say, I need a little ego in my monitor, turn my voice up. But we talk about our ego a lot. And, one of the ways that you can, there's a couple of things. So what you want to do is when you think about, okay, so I used to give this talk to the National Association of Social Workers every year. Remember when we used to give talks a lot?
Right.
And this one was what was clinically and scientifically proven that meditation helped with, right? And it took me like an hour to give this talk and I didn't even have anybody in a meditation. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I didn't even I didn't even lead them in that. I was just listing off, so it's like, of course, with mental disorder diagnoses, it helps your brain get bigger, just off the top of my head. It helps your brain, your gray matter is bigger, your hippocampus gets bigger, which is the part that helps you with learning and memory. People learn quicker and faster. You might tell your kids that. Also, people enjoy music more. That's one of my favorite benefits. Certainly, my husband was benefiting from pain management. It works better than morphine or oxys. It helps with, psychomotor movements. It helps with preventing Alzheimer's disease. It may be associated with helping with HIV disease. It helps with panic disorder, anxiety disorder, depression. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And so I don't have my little list.
No, you're good. That's a lot. That's a whole like chunk
But
full
if you
of good
pick
stuff.
one, like if you're like, okay, productivity, that's something I'm struggling with. Meditation is supposed to help with that. Latch onto that as a motivation because our ego is, we can use our ego to be a runner, right? Or to use, not Pantene or whatever, right? Like we can use our ego because our ego's like, well, I'm going to use this shampoo. My hair's going to look amazing. Or I'm going to run and I'm going to know all my neighbors and get a dog and fit in these jeans or whatever. You can use your ego to help the behavior become habitual, right?
Right.
But with meditation, not so much because you're trying to get your ego to be quiet.
Right.
Right. And so it gets very loud. And that's why some people will report feeling even more anxious when they go to sit down.
Right.
They don't realize that, here's the big billboard that I wish I could make for everybody is, there isn't one of you, there are two of you. You couldn't be sick of yourself. You couldn't have an argument with yourself if there's one of you. Right.
Right.
You wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is amazing. Then your ego wakes up and it's like, it's Wednesday, you gotta go to work, right? Everything's ruined, right? It's that constant talking in your head, but that's not you. You're the listener. You're the one listening to that.
Right.
And so that becomes really apparent the more you sit in meditation, that separation. And so you get really good at being like, okay, all right, thanks about that note about dinner, or probably shouldn't have had fish yesterday, or that person sucks, or I was, drank too much yesterday, or whatever it is that went on, that goes on, you start to be like, okay, thanks, I'm good. And then you have these little bouts of that morning freedom of when you're by yourself, that not listening to that running diatribe of Facebook feed or just whatever incoming constant. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Yes.
It's exhausting. And so if I was like, oh, here's a pill, you could get rid of it, you'd be like, sure, I'll take it. But if I said, here's a pill, you could get rid of the listener, you'd be like, because that's you.
Right.
See,
exactly.
And that's why people say your thoughts aren't you, right? Your body's not you, right? Because that's your ego identity. Mm-hmm. So when you go to sit, it's a little harder to make it a habit. So what I tell people is right when you wake up, and one of my teachers is David G. You might have heard of him. He's pretty popular. He says, rise, pee, meditate, RPM. Now I rise, pee, brush my chops, meditate, but rise, pee, meditate, rise, pee, meditate. Then your ego doesn't get all these arguments. Cause then it's like, well, then I'll do this and meditate. Then I'll do that and meditate. And then it's 3 and then it's 5. And then you're like, well, one more day of not doing the thing I wanted to do,
Sure, totally. I love that. I love that. Rise, pee, meditate.
Yeah,
The only thing
that's
I've
it.
done, that's the only thing I've done so far is like, I'll put my feet on the ground and I take a second to just sort of, so I guess I've got the beginnings. I think I put my feet on the ground. I pause for a second before I get up and pee and brush my teeth and deal with the kids and dogs. And I just for a second, just think of something positive, right? Like I'm thankful or I'm grateful for like
You're
one
killing
thing.
it.
That's all that's about as far as I've gotten. So
Well, here's the killer. You got to do it before the kids wake up.
yeah, otherwise it's not going to happen because I'm going to
Mm.
be mad. I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be
Right.
pissed off about something. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's not always going to go perfectly. Yesterday, my my son, you know how they just ruin everything.
They totally ruin it.
Ruin everything. I'm like, listen, you had one job or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he really did have one job and he ruined it. And he said, you need to take a breath. A second. And I'm like, oh, that's for other people.
Yeah.
No, but like on my car, it says distress therapist, and my husband got me a vanity plate. My name's Cheri, but it's spelled with a C, so it's CHERI